Hey kiddos, we have a crazy chapter last time. Ella was almost married off, and then we find out at the very end that her dad has gone out to see if Dame Olga, who's Hattie and Olive's mom, wants to marry him. This is better than her getting married, but still, it's a problem. So, we are on chapter 20. Dame Olga accepted father's offer to marry him. And expressing her satisfaction at gaining a new daughter, she nearly suffocated me with her hug. "My darling, you must call me Mom. Mom Olga sounds so cozy." The wedding was to be in a week, as soon as arrangements could be made, and as soon as Hattie and Olive returned from finishing school. "They won't go back after the wedding," Mom Olga said. "They have learned enough. We shall stay here together, and you must all endeavor to lighten my desolation when my husband is away. I will be the one in charge," she said. Her eyes followed Father, who was crossing the parlor to gaze out the window. "And who will lift my desolation?" he asked, his back to her. A blush deepened the color in her rouged cheeks. So she has blush on her cheeks, so you can tell, though, that she's getting blushed. Probably embarrassed. She was bestowed with him. Don't know that word. I'm going to look that up. Actually, if anyone at home, if you want to look it up, it is Besotted. Email me. Let me know what it means. Fortunately, my presence was required very little in this process of him getting married. I was rarely invited to Mom's Olga's residence, and Father kept her away from our house, which was day by day being emptied to satisfy his debt. I cared little about the furniture, except for my fairy rug, which Mandy and I hid one afternoon when Father was out with Mom Olga. We also rescued the best of Mother's gowns because Mandy swore I would shoot up someday soon, and then they would fit me perfectly. But we didn't dare touch Mother's jewels. Father would have known if so much as a brass pin had been missing. Anyway, none of them equaled the necklace Hattie had taken from me. The week was quiet. I spent my days and nights mostly with Mandy. During the day, I helped her cook and clean. At night, I read from my fairy book, or we chatted by the kitchen fire. My only ventures outside were to the royal pastures to see Apple. And if you remember, Apple is her centaur horse thing that Prince Shar gave her. I had hoped to meet Shar there, but the grooms told me that he was still chasing ogres. The first time I visited Apple was the day after I returned to Frel. He stood under a tree, his attention fixed on 3 brown leaves that clung to a low branch. As I watched, he reared back, lifted his head, and reached for a leaf just beyond his grasp. In the bunched muscles of his back legs and the straining line from his hips to his toes, from his hips to the tip of his fingers, he was splendid. If Algulin could have seen him, another pottery sculpture would have been born, a beautiful one of a centaur. I whistled. He whirled and stared at me. I held out a carrot and whistled again. A song about mermaids, Apple's distant cousins. When he saw the treat, he smiled and trotted towards me, both hands extended like a little baby. Soon, he let me pet his mane and came when I whistled, although no food was in sight. It wasn't long before the sight of me inspired as much happiness as the carrot had. I began to confide in him. His wide-eyed attention was an innovation, and his trick of cocking his head to one side when I spoke made me feel that every word was actually understood. So this reminds me of my dog. When I talk to her, she goes, and it seems like she actually understands. And so that's what she's doing with the centaur, basically. Hattie hates me, I said to him, and makes me do things. Never mind why. Olive likes me, which is hardly an advantage. Mom Olga is awful. You and Mandy are the only ones who love me, and you're the only ones probably who would never order me to do anything. Apple watched my face. His sweet, empty eyes stared into mine, his lips curled into a smile. The wedding was held in the old castle. Mom Olga wanted it to take place in our manor, but Father said that the castle would be much more romantic. Against such an argument, she had no weapons and agreed. When we arrived, Father went in straightway to see the details of the ceremony and of the masked ball that would follow. I slipped into the garden to visit the candle trees, which, devoid of their leaves, resembled rows of skeletal arms bent at the elbow. The day was cold. I passed the candles and marched up and down the avenue of elms, trying not to freeze. I even tried on my mask in a vain attempt to keep my nose warm. No matter how cold I felt, I was going to stay outside until several guests had arrived. My toes and fingers were numb before I deemed it safe to enter. As soon as I did, Hattie rushed to me, her new false tresses bouncing. Ella, oh, I've missed you so. Okay, sure. She was about to embrace me, and I warrant whispered a command in my ear. I stepped away. If you speak to me at all today, Hattie, I hissed, I'll snatch off your wig and pass it around to the guests, but not a word, I said at her. Taking off my cloak, I walked to the fire and remained there while the buzz of conversation grew behind me. There was nothing to tempt me to turn. The flames were more interesting than the talk. I wondered what made the air in front of the fire shimmer. Aren't you going to watch the wedding? Olive knocked my arm. Can I stay out here with you? The hall was silent, I said. Don't you want to see your mother wed? I wanted to be there to see the horrible event. I don't care, she said. I'd rather be with you. Well, I'm going in, so I guess you're coming in too. She followed me, and we slipped into the last row of seats. Father and Mom Olga faced an alcove in which stood High Chancellor Thomas, who began the ceremony to marry them. His speech sounded familiar, because he used almost the same phrases at Mother's funeral. That's interesting. The audience probably could have recited along with him. I heard coughs. A lady ahead of me snored gently, and Olive was soon asleep as well. A man in our row pulled out a knife and cleaned his fingernails with it. Only one viewer was watching intently, leaning forward in her seat, nodding at each trite statement, smiling while dabbing a wet eye. Who do we predict it is? I'm thinking maybe Hattie, but I think I might be wrong. I smelled lilacs. Lucinda! It was Lucinda who was here. She mustn't see me. As the daughter of the groom, I could hardly keep up the presence that I spoke only Erithian. It wouldn't make sense to her, and she knew I'd be lying. She would be livid that I fooled her. I put on my mask. I would leave the confusion of congratulations when the ceremony ended. I watched her, ready to duck if she turned my way. As soon as Sir Thomas concluded, Lucinda leapt into her feet. My friends, she rang out, while advancing on Father and Mom Olga. Never have I been so moved by a ceremony. Sir Thomas beamed, not because of the man's endless droning on, there were titters of laughter, but because of the love that has united these two, who are no longer in their first youth. Madam, Mom Olga began. Lucinda didn't hear her, or at least didn't show it. I am Lucinda the fairy, and I am going to give you the most wondrous gift. Mom Olga's voice changed from outrage to delight. A fairy gift, and everyone here to see it. Oh, Sir Peter, how divine. I should have been making my escape, but I stood frozen in place. Father bowed. You honor us. Thank you, Lucinda. It's the loveliest gift. No one can say this one is harmful or foolish. She shook her head defiantly. It's eternal love. As long as you live, you shall love each other. Okay. That doesn't seem like such a bad one to me. But I'm sure there's going to be a catch. So, what is your prediction? What's the catch? They said that as long as you live, you're going to love each other. I'm thinking about it too. I don't know. All right. Have a wonderful day.